The first hole at Royal Liverpool is a tricky beginning for the top professionals without taking into account the pressures of being the opening shot of an Open Championship. Bunkering on both sides of the fairway at ideal driving distance means strategic play can be important. The prevailing wind at Royal Liverpool from the west would see this hole played more into the breeze. However, the wind often changes direction during the summer months, as seen at previous Hoylake Opens. This would enable players to be more aggressive, driving over the bunkers to leave a shorter shot in. Regardless, finding the fairway gives the best chance of hitting this narrow target with the approach shot. It has lots of runoff areas around the green and surrounding bunkers, and it is notoriously tricky with its subtleties and a number of humps and hollows which the players have to navigate. Finding the right portion of the putting surface is key on the approach, placing further emphasis on being in the fairway to begin your championship. Stand is the traditional 18th hole for members and has been the backdrop for many iconic moments in past Open Championships prior to the routing change in 2006. This includes the triumphs of Roberto Di Vincenzo, Peter Thompson and the great Bobby Jones. With a tight drive on a hole measuring nearly 460 yards, there are bunkers well placed in the driving areas, so players will likely lay back short of these traps from the tee, leaving a medium to long approach to a well guarded green. Front pins on this hole may well be tough to access, with 3 bunkers protecting the narrow entrance, so players will likely favour the back portion of the green on most days, regardless of the pin. The third hole at Hoylake during the Open is played as a first for members and is a beloved 19th hole for match play situations. The reason it is so well adored and feared is the difficulty it can possess, with the possibility of finding out of bounds on both your tee shot and approach shot. The internal out of bounds runs the entire length of the right hand side of this hole as it doglegs sharply from left to right. There is a possibility for the bravest players to try and cover a fair portion of the out of bounds from the tee, but even the slightest push could end in disaster, and any shot pulled off the intended line will most likely find rough beyond the fairway. Therefore, many players will take out an iron off the tee and leave themselves around 180 to 220 yards to the green. Out of bounds again can come into play on the right as players hit their approach, but a significant bailout area to the left is a good miss on windy days and will no doubt be a popular spot. The green itself is relatively straightforward but can possess very subtle breaks, as is often the case at Hoylake. Players who have played the first 3 holes at par or better will be thrilled as they approach a scoreable part of the course. The beginning of a gettable 2-hole stretch, the fourth is a fun risk and reward hole that usually plays downwind, offering up a good birdie chance, but only to those who navigate it shrewdly. Some pins on a sloping green can be inaccessible if the wrong spot is found with the tee shot, making positional play all important. Many players will opt for an iron off the tee, attempting to hug the left side of the fairway and allowing a great angle to attack with a wedge. The putting surface itself is raised slightly and runs off on all sides into bunkers and swales, but with a good tee shot, the fourth is a great birdie chance. The fifth is arguably the best birdie chance on the course. It's the shortest of the 3 par 5s at Hoylake, and a good drive on this hole that moves slightly off the far right bunker is absolutely ideal and will leave a medium to long approach into a well guarded green. Players who move their ball from right to left will be licking their chops on this hole, as both the drive and the second shot require the shape to reach the intended target, as the green is set at a right to left angle and 2 bunkers guard the entrance. Shots played up to the right of the green may find their way down a hill onto the putting surface, but those that stray too far right will leave themselves a tricky chip. and any shot which flies directly at the pin may find trouble either short or long. Much will depend on how the conditions play, but the 5th is a great birdie chance. The first of 4 wonderful par 3s at Hoy Lake, the 6th, plays slightly uphill to an elevated green. The front of the putting surface has a severe runoff, with cavernous bunkers awaiting at the foot of the hill both front and left. Players who miss right will have their short game equally tested with a bank on that side of the green that runs away from them. Middle of the green is a safe bet from the tee, but accuracy is paramount. However, in benign conditions and with a favourable pin location, the world's best will see this hole as another chance to improve their score. After a relatively calm 3-hole stretch, the 7th at Hoy Lake reminds players how tough the course can be. An intimidating tee shot offers up significant challenges regardless of the wind. Into a strong breeze, the hole becomes brutally long, with a 250-yard drive required to even reach the fairway, whereas if the wind switches to an easterly direction and conditions are firm, carrying the ball onto the fairway and stopping it short of the nasty bunkers on both sides of the driving area will be tricky. Gorse awaits very loose shots from the tee left and right, but if the fairway is found, the approach can be a little bit more straightforward. There is room on the right to work the ball towards the putting surface, but shots that travel too far left risk bringing in 2 gaping bunkers. The surface itself is at the same height as most of the surrounding area. However, it moves a lot and reading this green correctly is not easy. Par on this hole will undoubtedly gain on the field during the Open. On the 8th at Hoy Lake, players will need to be aware of the out of bounds to the left, although this shouldn't come into play for the world's best golfers. The question then becomes how aggressive players want to be, with bunkers guarding the right of the fairway and gorse creeping in on the left hand side. The further down players go, the tighter the fairway becomes, creating a greater risk of finding the gorse. A good play is to hit level or just before the bunkers on the right of the fairway, leaving a medium to short approach and giving a great birdie chance. However, if players get too cute to a right pin, a tiny runoff area and 2 front bunkers await to gobble up golf balls and potentially turn a birdie chance into a bogey. Caution should therefore be exercised in tricky conditions, especially when missing the fairway from the tee. A fun par 3 as players reach the end of the front 9. The prevailing wind on this hole, usually right to left and slightly down, can present problems. At 200 yards with a long green that runs diagonally from left to right at an angle, holding the ball up against the wind and landing it short is somewhat of a challenge, with 2 front bunkers making the entrance very narrow. Runoff areas back left and a bunker to the left can also cause issues with back pin locations. The green also has a large amount of movement, and holding short putts for birdie or more likely par will be difficult. Traditionally a par 5 at Hoy Lake and at the Open, the 10th will play as a par 4 in 2023, and suddenly becomes one of the most difficult holes on the course as players begin their back 9. The drive is fairly innocuous, however placement in the wrong position can leave difficult lies for the second shot, which will probably be a mid to long iron at best. A large mound in the middle of the fairway can also obstruct views to the green, which is slightly raised from the fairway. The green has a very steep runoff area to the left and an even deeper bunker to the right. With approach shots now more mentally trying with the hole playing as a par 4, taking a par at this hole will be a very good score, especially under Open Championship conditions in 2023. The 11th runs back parallel to the 10th hole and offers a beautiful view from the tee of the ocean to the left. The tee shot itself plays up to the top of the hill, and players will hope to get over that brow if conditions are favourable, leaving them with a short approach to a green that sits just below them. The approach is fairly narrow and tight, so the shorter the club in the player's hands, the better. Depending on pin placement, players can be aggressive in trying to make birdie, but trouble awaits on both sides, with bunkers flanking the entrance of the green and a difficult steep swale to the left, making for a tough up and down. Depending on pin placement, players can be aggressive in trying to make birdie, but trouble awaits on both sides, with bunkers flanking the entrance to the green and a difficult and steep series of swales to the left, which will make for a tough up and down. The 12th continues around to the left hand side, running along the shoreline and doglegging from right to left. However, the fairway cambers slightly from left to right. 3 bunkers lie in wait to the right hand side for aggressive tee shots that are leaked that way. Depending on the wind, longer hitters could be able to take the bunkers completely out of play with a right to left shape up the hole, but a sea of rough all down the left hand side makes that option risky. Once the fairway is found, a tough approach can always await depending on the pin. The green is raised significantly from the fairway and is very long in length. Pins at the front are very accessible where the green is at its widest, but the further back the flag, the tougher the shot, as a huge runoff area to the left creeps into the back of the green, which can become quite tight, with misses to the right and long also leaving very difficult up and downs. A favourite hole of many members at Royal Liverpool, the par 3 13th is a stunning hole that employs optical illusions to only add to the difficulty. From the tee, it appears as if there is no room to the left, with only far right pins fully visible, and the undulation of the mounds 100 yards away blocks any view, leaving the impression that left is a no-go zone. The green runs diagonally from right to left, with a bailout zone short and right. Anything pin high right, however, can find significant trouble with a bunker to the right and a gnarly hill, from where an up and down is extremely difficult. That comes into play more than would be expected. The 14th is a brilliant hole and another very difficult par 4 with an intimidating championship tee. The hole appears to be a slight dogleg, but in fact curves quite significantly from right to left. The traps down the left hand side signal the start of the hole turning on that right to left dogleg. In the right conditions, the very longest players may be tempted to try and carry the traps to the left. However, this brings in significant risk with gorse to the left hand side of the fairway. One of the key features of this design is it's almost necessary for players to be level with the bunkers or just short to see the green and have a reasonable angle to the hole. Like the 13th, the 14th green has a mound short that impairs vision and makes it appear as if there's no room to the left. From the fairway, the right appears to be the safe miss. However, there is also a steep runoff area on that side. This makes a play to the back left of the green the percentage play. The green slopes lightly and again is tricky to read. A superb championship hole. The 15th hole, previously the 16th hole in past Opens, has been significantly lengthened since Rory McIlroy's triumph in 2014. In 2023, the hole will play over 600 yards, and if the wind is into the players' faces, the hole can become quite intimidating in its length, particularly from the tee. With the prevailing wind, however, players can take a significant portion of the length away if they manage to smash the driver over a portion of the bunkers to the right. Finding one of these bunkers will make par a very tough ask, but hitting the fairway certainly brings birdie into the equation. If they can reach, most players will have a go at the green or play an aggressive layup to the right 60 yards short of the putting surface. A number of bunkers line the left of the green, and entry from the right is the ideal angle, again suiting a player who could shape the ball from right to left if they're having a crack from the fairway. The green is fairly difficult to put on, with subtle slopes proving difficult at times. Nevertheless, this still provides a good birdie chance, barring a stiff headwind as the players prepare to play the last 3 holes. A long hole that can play even longer than its usual yardage, many players will lay back short of the fairway bunkers on both sides and leave themselves well over 200 yards to the green. The green itself suits a running shot and welcomes low ball flights that enter through the mouth of the green, with bunkers to the left and right. A long hole that can play even longer than its usual yardage, many players will lay back short of fairway bunkers on both sides and leave themselves well over 200 yards to the green. The putting surface suits a running shot and welcomes low ball flights that enter through the mouth of the green, with bunkers left and right. However, a cross bunker 50 yards short can come into play if entering the green from the wrong angle. The surface itself is very big and requires a deft touch to navigate successfully. Into a stiff breeze, this is a very strong par 4 and requires the utmost respect from the players. This is the new hole on the course that everybody will be talking about. This par 3 is a stunning creation with an infinity green that plays directly out towards the ocean and Wales, which lies only a few miles away. The green is raised above the players significantly, and a sea of bunkers and huge fall-off areas on all sides mean hitting the green is essential. Any miss on any side will leave a devilish up and down. Once on the green, the undulations are considerable, and making putts is not easy, nor is finding the right location with the tee shot. The views are stunning and the setting is dramatic. The leader of the Open will be very happy to walk off the 17th with a 3, especially if the wind is blowing. The 18th hole has seen significant changes in 2023, and this hole will certainly produce even more drama. The championship tee has been moved back around 50 yards and significantly further right, whilst the out of bounds down the right hand side has been moved 20 yards further left. The fairway appears very narrow and requires a tee shot of 240 yards to even reach the short grass. With dangerous bunkers down the left and out of bounds down the right, if players want any chance of a closing eagle, they have to hit the drive of a lifetime. The fairway moves from left to right around the out of bounds, and the approach is framed by the stunning open grandstands. Bunkers around this green will make a second shot very difficult, and a layup might not be the worst option if players trust their wedge game. This is a fantastic finishing hole that could produce double bogeys and eagles.